and welcome to episode 35 of Arg My Optics, an occasional podcast where grown adults discuss, overanalyze, and generally take a toy and media franchise originally intended for kids a little too seriously. Usually that of the Transformers. I am your generic, cogless, easy-to-anger, grey, mining robot host, Orion Ghia. But seeing as we'll be using that name a lot in this episode, how about we go with sleeves? And with me is my generic, cogless, red and blue, hopelessly optimistic mining robot co-host, Virtual Dave. Dave, how the devil are you? It's been ages, right?
It's been a few cycles, yeah. But I'm good.
Okay. Yes, it has been a while, hasn't it? I mean, for those 10 or so regular listeners, you may have noticed that there hasn't been an Arg My Optics for ruddy ages, which of course has set social media and message boards alight with rumours and speculation. Hordes of you have been taking to your keyboards and asking, is it all over? And if so, why? Well, I can finally set the record straight and say, mind your own business. Arg My Optics now lives in limbo, where we'll do one if we can be bothered or asked. End of speculation, I guess. In the meantime, I've been off making podcasts about comics. Check out We've Got Back Issues, people. And you've been moonlighting on YouTube channel Transformers the Show, haven't you, Dave?
I have indeed. I mean, I've been invited back for a second time. And for those lucky people who got to see me live on the show, I can only apologise for whatever technical difficulties struck me that evening. But, yeah, I had a great time. They're great guys to have a chat with, and they definitely have been doing it for a long time now. So they've got their following, and it's nice to be included. It's nice to...
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm no strangers to your technical difficulties, so, you know, it's your problem now, guys. Expect lots of kicking the underside of the table while he's talking, all that kind of stuff.
You really are you're gonna start something there though with the rumours and speculation. People are going to be wanting to see like a documentary in about 25 years.
Oh, look. I mean, full disclosure, Transformers isn't quite... I mean, I've run out of things to say about a lot of Transformers stuff, so I'm not going to make a podcast about it unless I've got something to say. And for a change, I have got something to say. So... We're making this Transformers podcast about Transformers. What Transformers thing has happened recently that we could possibly be talking about?
I can only think of one.
Well, what one? One indeed. What one would that be?
The much, well, I think to a lot of people's shock, really, Transformers One has come out and hit UK cinemas very recently for us. Long time ago for everyone else.
Only about a month.
Yeah.
It was a month late in the UK.
Yeah. We like Transformers over here too. But yeah. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I will say, ahead of all of this, there will be spoilers, because we will talk about the plot, we'll talk about the characters, we'll talk about the ending, I imagine. It's no holds barred. If you haven't watched the movie and you don't want it spoiled, please go and watch the movie and then come back and listen to this. My optics! So I guess we should probably do a little bit of background on the movie. I don't know how much you know about what led up to it being made, Dave?
I remember just the initial concept art coming in drips and drabs, and we had a lot of articles talking about the film with like a lot of star-spangled casts, but I don't really remember much of what the lead-up was or what was said per se, no.
Well, I mean, I did my research as per usual, and essentially, after the release of Age of Extinction, which was movie, 5?
No, 4.
4? And then what was after that? Was it Bumblebee?
The Last Night, and
then Bumblebee? It was Bumblebee.
Yeah,
right.
Then it was Bumblebee.
So after Age of Extinction, Paramount Pictures asked Akivia Goldsman to work with at the time film franchise director Michael Bay and executive producer Steven Spielberg and producer Lorenzo di Bonaventura
Yes.
to set up a writer's room to create ideas for future Transformers movies. In 2015, the writing team of Andrew Barrell, Andrew Barrell, or Barra. Why am I reading that wrong? I read things wrong. Andrew Barra and Gabriel Ferrari, they signed on, and one of the ideas from the writer's room, which I think they are responsible for, had the working title of Transformers One, and would serve as an animated prequel focusing on the Autobot-Decepticon conflict that began on Cybertron. So it was in continuity, originally, the idea.
Right, yes. There was like a plan for like 13 movies or something at one point. I remember they were talking about, yes. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, and since that idea was bandied about, it's gone through various creators and producers and so on, until in 2020, it was reported that former Pixar animator and filmmaker Josh Cooley had been hired to direct the film. And he worked on Toy Story 4, I think, and a few other big high-profile Pixar things, I imagine. And overseeing the script were said Barra and Ferrari, so the guys who came up with the original concept, or at least that's what I believe to be true. And like I said, the continuity, it's still a bit murky, to be fair.
Is it?
Well, the original plan was for it to be a prequel to the rest of the movies. However, a lot like Bumblebee, it appeared to be in flux during development of the movie.
Right.
So when it entered full production in 2020, it was claimed it was separate and apart from the ongoing live action movies. But when Josh Cooley was asked if the film was a prequel to the live action films, a reboot, or in its own universe, he replied, yes to all of the above.
Right.
But then he contradicted himself closer to release, saying the film was in a new Transformers community. And in another interview, weeks before the release, producer Lorenzo di Bonaventura stated that one didn't fit chronologically into the live action films, describing one and the live action films as two separate universes. But the thing is, he's kind of said the opposite as well. So it's clear from watching the movie that this really isn't linked to the live action movies yet.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they could absolutely just go, oh, let's make it part of it or not. You know, they're very loosey-goosey with continuity with the Transformers movies, aren't they?
I mean, to anyone who can kind of piece together continuity in the live-action films on their own, you know, God bless you, because those films don't know what they're doing within that own live-action universe, as it were. Yeah. Let's just keep it separate for now. Let's just, for our own sanity, park it.
Yeah, this film does not appear to be part of the same continuity. I'm just saying that you know what they're like. Like, those movies don't really make any sense continuity-wise. Bumblebee doesn't fit within the continuity of the previous movies very well, but there's still some kind of like fudgy kind of, oh, it does, it doesn't. Is it the same thing? Are they all... I don't care, because as far as I'm concerned, those Michael Bay movies don't exist, because I hate them. However, off the back of a lot of very gushing reviews from the fandom, I went along to see this movie. And a gushing review from yourself, actually, I think.
Yes.
Well, fairly gushing.
I was very lucky to go and see it a bit early. Big thanks to TF Nation for inviting me down to go and see it in London. I had my expectations for the film wasn't crazy high, and I understood why people had a bit of reservations from the trailers. I didn't really mind the trailers, to be fair. I thought that they were kind of pushing it towards kids, and I had no problem with that. You know, I wasn't yearning for another gory, violent, action-packed summer blockbuster Transformers film. So if this felt like it was something different, and I was kind of okay with that.
Sure.
But yes, when I got to see it and finally realized what the story was about and what direction they were going with in it, I was pleasantly surprised. And I've been telling everyone since.
I mean, yeah, I do agree with you about the trailers. Like, they did depict it, especially the early ones. Like, there were later ones that were a bit more on the money. But, yeah, the early ones did kind of play up the kidsy side to it, which it does have.
Yeah.
It does have a kidsy side. There's a kind of Marvel movie jokiness to it that, especially in the first half an hour to 40 minutes, it's very, very bro jokes, fist bumps.
I mean, I know what you're getting. I know what you mean by like Marvel type of MCU humor, but it's kind of, I feel like it was handled better. Like, I think like one of the very first jokes with like Orion Pax and the two Dreadwing dudes who come to him in the library or wherever he is at the start.
Sure.
The timing for the dramatic timing for some of the jokes, I think, worked better than sometimes where they kind of do it for more modern MCU things, where there's almost like a pause for an applause or something. Like
I suppose. I wasn't really thinking about the timing. I was just thinking about whether I found it funny.
Oh well.
And spoilers. I didn't.
It wouldn't be a shocker to our listeners that Orion Ghia is a tough crowd when it comes to comedy.
Well, I don't know. I found it. We'll get into that later.
My optics!
So, what's the plot? Let's talk about the plot. Let's talk about the movie. Let's talk about what happens in the movie. Sorry, guys. Like I said, maybe spoilers. Would you like to tackle it before I jump in and correct you?
I'll give it a try. Well, it's just we're starting on a Cybertron way before a war, so a Cybertron that is, colourful, full of light. Okay, no, we're not.
It's just after a war.
It's just after a war. Oh yes, I'm sorry. Forget what I just said. There was a war.
It's before the Civil War.
It's before the
Transformers.
Yeah. It's before the war that we all know and have been seeing for the last 40 years.
Yes.
It's before that.
Yes, before
but after
that war.
After
a different war. Yeah.
We follow a small group of people. So we have Orion Pax, D16, and later on we meet Alita and Bumblebee. And
B157 or whatever it's called.
B127.
Well, that's it.
And this planet at the moment they seem to be underground. No one's going to the surface. Only their leader, Sentinel Prime, and
his cronies.
And his cohorts of Viacons?
Drones? Yeah, they never explain what those are. But
no.
They have got a name. Like, they're called, I don't know, predators or trackers. I think they're called trackers.
Yes.
But they never actually name them in the movie, as far as I mean, maybe I missed it. I've only seen the movie once. You've seen it twice. But, like, I don't remember them saying what they are. They're just kind of generic baddie robots.
Yes.
As it were. Sorry, I'm spoiling already. Generic soldier robots.
And we follow Orion and D16, who are minor bots who drill into the planet's core to take out raw energon from the planet.
But why do they do that, Dave?
Because ever since the last big war, where all of the primes, as we know them, the Fantastic 13, were, as far as we know, were killed during the war with the Quintessons. And as one of the things that was gone missing since the end of that war is the matrix of leadership. And without that, the connection between Primus and the planet and the energon is all out of flux. So energon's not flowing as it once was, and it's all dried up.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to get these...
Because apparently the Matrix allows energon to flow.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's what they say. And then later on, it's proven to be true.
Yes. The only thing that is probably a bit more different than what we know of Transformers, as it were, is that they have really drilled in that whole thing about these ones who can't transform. The cogless bots are kind of the lower class, bottom tier of the society, and are the ones mining for this energon. It's not every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's joining in. It's just these.
I mean, they're a worker class. They're below other Transformers, or below Transformers with cogs who can transform. They're all. I mean, I don't know if you call them slaves, because I don't know what the remuneration is on their work, but it's very they're kind of put to work for the good of a society, to benefit the upper classes of society.
Yeah. And on this journey of following Orion around his crazy, wacky ideas of doing more than just being a miner, he kind of stumbles across some secrets or a message that sends them all on a quest to find the Matrix and end up going to the surface.
Yeah, he stumbles across it in an incredibly convenient way.
I mean, I don't know if you're called Steve convenient, but Steve was a very vital man.
It's just like, it just so happens that where we've ended up, there's a beacon that shows the location of the final battle of the Primes, who all went to the same place at the same time and were killed in battle, leaving only Sentinel Prime to rule the planet. Mm-hmm. And as this was explained to me in the first 15 minutes of the movie, I went, oh, right, so that means Sentinel Prime planned it and he's a baddie.
I mean, I kind of already assumed Sentinel was up to no good from the very first moment you see Sentinel.
It's no surprise, is it? It's no shocker.
I mean, it's not a surprise that he is a bad guy. It's more shocking what he did as a bad guy, I found. I thought it was going to be way more surface level than it was, but then he did a lot more things I thought were well, you can't really say it without spoiling it. It's the taking of the cogs before they came online, and the way he killed the other primes, I wasn't expecting.
Well,
everything else, I kind of thought maybe he was coerced or he was forced to do it up to a point, and then he did that stuff, and he was like, oh.
Sure. Okay, yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. I think, and I thought he was cleverer than he was in the end. Like, I thought that the whole thing about the Matrix was a lie. You know, I thought that my thoughts were, well, he's just using the idea that this Matrix causes energon to flow to enslave it is working classes into working for him, and he's actually, the Matrix is perfectly fine, perfectly safe, and it never did that in the first place.
Right.
And I I thought that maybe almost all of his story was just bullshit, you know? But it turns out that his story's not massively bullshit. It's just the fact that he was complicit in what happened.
Yeah, I think I think it's kind of hinted at as well that the Matrix gives the owner like more power, and I kind of get the feeling that is also probably one of the main reasons why he wanted it, is to be, you know, the most powerful prime, as he wanted to claim himself to be. Like, I can understand it more for a power thing.
Well, I think he was taking it because he wanted to be the leader of the Transformers, and unfortunately, Transformers society is not a democracy. You are chosen as leader by divinity. You are chosen by God to be the leader, and everyone has to just fall in line.
Oh, so like the royal family?
Yeah, essentially.
Oh, there you go.
Well, do you know what I mean? Like,
worked well for us.
The leader of the Transformers is the person who has the matrix of leadership, and as it transpires, you have to be chosen by the matrix of leadership to be leader.
Yeah.
So it's basically like you're chosen by God, because the matrix of leadership is Primus's essence, essentially. Because it's made very clear at the beginning of this movie that Primus is real.
Oh yeah, we see
Primus
him.
is the planet. Well, you see him in a kind of a data track that he's watching. Yeah. It's like I don't think it's live footage.
No.
Dave, I think it might be a dramatization.
No, I mean,
I've seen pictures of God, but I don't believe he's real.
No, I mean in the sense of like it's probably like the first time we've seen Primus planet is giant robot since like Transformers Cybertron. Like,
sure,
they're really homing it in that he is the planet.
Yes,
in some description.
In this version, that's perceived wisdom that is what the planet is. The planet is Primus. Primus is the planet, and he created Transformers in his own image, as it were. But so essentially, yes, you're divinely selected as leader. So if him having the Matrix would mean that he was, I suppose he thought, I get the Matrix, I get to be leader.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So that's why he had to kind of wrest it from their control, as it were, and why he coveted it so much. And why he claims to be searching for it, but we all know he's not really. No. Well, we find out he's not really. And one thing I find a little bit hard to stomach or hard to believe is that we're told this is 50 cycles later, right? Mm-hmm. And without spoiling too much, we will spoil this later. We'll get onto it, but we're told this is 50 cycles later. Why doesn't anybody remember what it was like before?
I also had this thought.
Like, no one does.
The only thing that would be missing from what they would know is right and wrong is the cogless bots.
That's my point.
Everything else kind of would line up with what his story is. It's just, how do you just have a new race of worker bots that can't transform?
Yeah. How do you explain that all of a sudden Transformers are being born without cogs? I mean, they could have put something in there to explain that away. I don't think it's difficult, but they don't. So it makes you kind of go, well, hang on. Like, how long is 50 cycles? Like, I'd assume it's like an equivalent of a year or something.
Don't even try.
No, I mean to a transformer. I mean to a transformer, because you're using it as shorthand. Because essentially, you're relating to them as a human watching the movie as they are they're regular folk. So I would think a cycle's a year in their time. You know what I mean? I just think that if they'd said millennia or something. Mm-hmm. I might be like, oh, okay, maybe no one remembers, you know? But it's only been a short while, 50 years or 50 cycles or whatever.
Yes. I get where you're coming from.
It's not a big deal. It's just something that I picked up on.
No, it's not a big deal. And I do agree, like, they could have easily just, like, he could have just looked through another hologram thing where it kind of brings it up in the slightest way.
Yeah, like maybe they say something like, "Oh, there was some terrible disease or something that caused bots to be born without cogs or whatever."
Or even just the lack of energon. Just say that.
Well, whatever. Yeah, something, anything. They could have explained it a little bit better, because it felt like, the thing is, right? You've got this society where you've got the cogless underclass, working class of robots, But the working class, the cogless folk, they all seem very okay with it. Like, they don't seem to have a problem. Orion just wants to be noticed and be able to contribute more to society. He and D16 both idolise Sentinel Prime. Neither of them are like, I don't think this feels right that we are treated differently. You know?
I think there is a bit of that at the beginning, more so in the terms that the ones who can transform do definitely, like, talk down to them and, like, don't take them seriously because of that.
No, but they accept it.
I mean, there's something that they say, like, you're a cogless bot and you have limited options or something. Like, it's like, I think there's an undertone of, like, it's all they can do. Like, it's not like, if you weren't going to do this, what would you do? Because you can't transform. Like,
yeah, and they just accept that, and they go, yeah, that's fine.
Well, everyone else except Orion, I guess.
No, including Orion. Orion accepts it. He's just like, yeah, but I want to prove that a cogless bot can be important too, can help, can, you know, part of the solution.
Yeah, that's why they run in the race at the start. So they want to.
But he doesn't. And this is the thing. I think they could have played that up much better, especially because obviously, so the story is that Optimus Prime and D16. D16 is obviously is the younger version of Megatron.
Spoilers.
It's obvious, isn't it? I mean, just look at him. I mean, for God's sake, just look at him. Right? They're trying to play this idea that they're both kind of rising up from the underclass, but dealing with it in a different way, you know? Correct. So, essentially, a similar thing to Professor X and Magneto, a similar thing to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. Like, the idea that one person sees a solution through diplomacy and the other sees a solution through a rebellion or an uprising. But they don't play them that way. They just play them as two guys who are quite fine with the situation. They're good. They're pally buddies. They make silly jokes. They idolise the people in charge. They see Sentinel as someone to aspire to.
He's like a celebrity to them. Like, it's you know.
And that felt a bit weird to me. Again, not a big deal because it's fine, it works, but it does feel a little bit kind of like, well, you know, what's your motivation here? Like, you know,
I think
Orion's motivation really is just that he wants to help.
I think you also have to think about the, because they kind of hint at it with some of the worker bots as well, of just like, if you're doing this day in, day out, and you're just doing this, you know, you're sticking to protocol, as they kept referring it to. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not going out and doing stuff off what they should be doing, like Orion is.
Yeah. And
thinking outside the box. I feel like they would have had to have done a lot more to really kind of hone in that people are, well, you know, not just doing their job and, you know, resting up and then doing their job again. Like, it would need a lot more to really flesh that out, and I'm not sure it would have worked.
I mean, well. They've totally been subjugated, but I do feel like it's not a very long movie.
Yeah, it's great.
Could have had an extra 10 minutes in there covering some of this stuff.
I never thought I would hear you say those words about a film. Hey, it could have been longer.
I'm not saying I want it to be longer. I'm just saying there's space. There's space to do it if needed. Like, you can't really argue there wasn't time to do those things. That's what I'm trying to say. And anyway, that's fine. That's all right. So essentially, we've got this status quo. Orion finds out some stuff. Well, basically, they go and do total wipeout, and they almost win. There's basically a race on. Like, Sentinel comes back from looking for the Matrix for the umpteenth time and goes, "Hi guys, yeah, didn't find the Matrix. Sorry about that. But anyway, we're going to have a race." Mm-hmm. So there's a race called the Icon 5000 or whatever, and Orion wants to enter it to kind of prove that somehow, to basically prove that cogless bots like him and his best friend D16 can do stuff, can get stuff done, and can be of value to him, past just digging up Energon, essentially.
Yeah.
And they enter this race. Well, I mean, D16 doesn't want to enter the race. D16 is perfectly fine just following protocol, just doing what he's told. And he finds Orion's constant trying to act above his station slightly annoying, and finds it gets him in trouble. Yeah. But they're pals, they're good pals, and it's fine. So he kind of fools D16 into competing in the race, which is exactly like Wipeout. Like, it looks like Wipeout.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of anti-grav kind of races. And to the shock and awe of the crowd, who are mostly cogless, mostly the underclass, they see two miners in the race, and they're really excited. And they almost win, and it's only because D16 gets run down by Chromia, who does win the race in the end. Orion won't leave him behind because they're pals. They limp across the line, or they're going to limp across the line, then they're knocked over by absolutely everybody else, and they end up coming like last or whatever. But they almost won. Yeah. And it's a big deal. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, did you see what those miners did?"
I love that the scene. They're discussing what's going to happen to them, and then Sentinel walks in. First Arachnid walks in and does her whole
scanning the place, looking for problems.
And then he walks in, and that's one of the other things that I like about the film. It's the sense of scale between these core cogless guys and the other transformable robots.
Right.
There's a massive size difference with Sentinel when he walks in, and how he really has to squat in to like come and have a little chat with them at their level. And I kind of like that.
I was going to bring something up about scale later. Well, in general, with this movie not having any humans in it or anything in it, it's impossible to know how big anybody is. Like, a Sentinel could be 600 foot tall, he could be 6 inches tall. We don't know. I think they could have done a little bit. I do agree with the scale of between cogless and people who've got cogs, because essentially, not having a cog stunts you.
Yeah,
it's like kind of a, I don't know. It's like taking something away that's giving you. It's like taking all the nutrients away from somebody at a young age or whatever. That you just become this like little weedy guy. You don't grow into what you're actually meant to be. And I like that. That's great. And I agree with you, scale there. But at the same time, sometimes it's like, how big are these guys? I don't know. Like what is there to compare them to?
I get what you mean in terms of that across the whole film. It does get a bit weirder how some big things are or what they transform into. But I feel like you only feel that for maybe like the first part of the film. You kind of really set into this like, oh, these are just the size of these guys because that's who we're following. I don't think I felt that again until you see Orion come back and talk to the cogless guys at the end and how big he is compared to those guys. I'm like, oh, he's got a lot bigger than I realised type of thing. I kind of forgot.
That's true. Yeah, that certainly is something that works. I do agree. I think maybe what they could have done was when they go to the surface, there'd be a bit of a scale difference between them and, spoilers, on the surface there is flora and fauna. There are plants, organic looking plants, and there are kind of robotic looking elk or deer, but they look kind of similar in scale to Orion and D16 and Elite 1 and the most annoying guy on the planet. They look similar in scale to them as they would be to a human. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm sure. Maybe that's why they didn't play too much into that, because they didn't really get too close to those creatures. I did find it interesting though that they like the little town that they come across to hide in from the scanning ship wasn't, that they didn't seem too out of scale with that as well. So I don't know. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. It's hard to say though, because it was complete ruins, wasn't it? So it's quite difficult to say how big it was. Yeah, so like you said, Sentinel goes to meet them in the medical bay or whatever, and they're a bit worried about that they're going to be in trouble, but it turns out Sentinel love what they did. He thinks it's brilliant, and at first they're quite pleased about that. In fact, they are pleased about it the whole way through, because they are a bit stupid. And he says like, "Oh, it's great what you did," and like Orion's like, "Yeah, there's loads of ways that we can help you and we can work with you, and wouldn't that be great?" And he's like, No. What I'm saying is that productivity in the mines has gone up by 50%, 150%, I think it was.
Yeah, I like how he does that. This is what I mean. That's what I really like the depiction of Sentinel in this film. He really just...
Well, it's John Hamm, and he's great.
He's so good in this role.
Yeah.
He really plays it up in a really, really showman-y type of...
Yeah. It's like a con man.
A con man, yes, that's it, exactly. Like he really hams up, like he's laughing with them, and then they're looking at Arachnid like it's.
I think anybody who's watched Mad Men,
Yes,
know this character. I mean, it's Don Draper essentially
in robot form. Yes,
yeah. It's that kind of like he's putting his spin on things a lot of the time. So he's like, oh no, what I'm saying is that, productivity has got up 150%. We should tour you around the mines, to get morale.
Have a chat with your fellow miners and get them on side.
He just sees them as a promotional tool.
Yeah.
And we learn later that he needs more energy out of those mines. So he's like, this is great. This is really going to help me. Like these guys, they can basically go around like Captain America in World War II, like, geeing up the troops.
I almost kind of want to see a montage of what that would have been like, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this movie is quite. I mean, it's quite short, and I'm happy about that. But it moves along at quite a pace. Things kind of happen, and sometimes you're like, hang on, what? And it's like, don't worry about that, we're moving on. Can someone just explain what that was? No, we're not going to, we're moving on, next bit. And which is fine, but it can be a little bit kind of dizzying, I think.
Yes and no. And we'll talk about why that is later, I'm sure.
Okay, sure. Anyway, we're going to just quickly kind of go over the rest of the plot. Blah, 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 blah. He promises to send him to his medical facility, but before he gets a chance, Darkwing, who was their boss at the mine, and might also have been one of the guys who was chasing him out of that archive. They look very similar.
Oh, it's Dreadwing. Right?
Well, we don't know, do we? They don't actually name them. They name one Darkwing.
No. They name there's one who keeps hassling them throughout the film.
That's Darkwing.
And that's the one that does throw them in the... Yeah, okay, yeah.
So, he basically turns up just as Sentinel leaves. I think he used to be their boss at the mine. He's the one who... Because earlier on, we met Alita 1, and she is like their supervisor. Mm-hmm. And she gets demoted because, once again... Optimus doesn't follow protocol and saves Jazz from a cave-in, essentially. But by doing so, destroys that mine. And that sets them back, and Darkwing's not happy about it. So Darkwing turns up and goes, right, I don't like you guys, so I'm sending you to waste disposal.
It's because they disrupted him in the race.
Yeah.
Why he's gunning for them at this point.
Yeah. He doesn't like them, and that he likes them even less because of that.
Yeah.
So he dumps them to the 15th sub-level of Cybertron, which is where the trash is incinerated. And this is where they meet Bumblebee.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to defend Bumblebee in this, aren't I?
Are you? Are you going to bother to defend him?
I
reckon universally he is despised.
Now, I'm going to throw something at you here, and I'm curious to know what you think of it, or my theory about Bumblebee in this film. Bumblebee had been broken before the film even started. Like, he says he's been there for a long time, and it's really hammed up that he's been in isolation for a long time.
Oh yeah, no, I'm absolutely sure that he is mentally ill.
Right. Yeah, and when he gets everything that happens after they leave the incinerator place, everything seems like it's dialed up to like 100 with Bumblebee, where everyone else is like up to maybe like an 11 on like
dialed up to 100 from the moment you meet him.
Right, but it makes sense to me why he's like that, because he's been in isolation. Everything is like the first time he's interacted with someone, and it's so great, and he's just over the top all the time. I get it.
I don't really. I think it's that idea that Hollywood seems to have that intensely irritating characters are funny.
Well, I mean, especially in America, yeah.
And they're not. Like, they're actually just intensely irritating. And he is intensely irritating. I'd happily watch a version of this movie with all of his lines muted. The way he is portrayed is so over the top and annoying, and it seems very much deliberate.
Oh yeah, like it's with purpose.
What is the purpose?
I mean, obviously there's the kid appeal part of it, I suppose, that they really.
I don't think kids like annoying characters. I think this is a misnomer. I don't think kids like annoying characters. I think they do. I think adults think kids like annoying characters. I never liked annoying characters when I was a kid.
I mean,
I never liked Schnarf. I never liked that little robot thing from Mask. I never liked Wheelie. I never liked any of those characters because they're annoying.
Yes.
Just saying. I don't. That's all. I mean, it doesn't ruin the movie. It's just there, and it's annoying.
I feel, it feels like to me like animated Bumblebee really drilled up to another level, because animated Bumblebee is probably like the closest to this we've had. Because
sure,
Bumblebee doesn't talk in a lot of the movies.
And yeah, and I think here they were trying to swing the other way. They were like, wouldn't it be funny if Bumblebee, who doesn't talk in the other movies, can't stop talking in this one?
Right. And I feel like it.
And that's the level of the comedy here. That's the kind of stupidity of the comedy here.
I really like it because the way they use it, and when they don't use it, because there is times where Bumblebee is a lot like, there's a scene where they meet the High Guard, who are all of the Seekers, on the surface chilling out, and he's really, oh my god, this is Soundwave, this is Shockwave, yeah. But then there's times in the film where it gets a bit more serious in tone, and even Bumblebee is speechless, or he's trying to get other people to stop talking. Like, there's a scene where D16 tries to stand up to Sentinel, and he keeps trying to tell him, shut up, sit down, even I'm not being an annoying asshole here, you're going to get yourself killed.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. There is also another turn with him, which we'll talk about later, that feels weird. It happens to almost all of the characters. But yeah, I do see what you're saying. I do think that maybe that is used to dramatic effect, and maybe that works. I didn't find it particularly. I just wished he was less annoying than he is. Like, I just found him incredibly annoying, like horribly so.
Didn't people find Bumblebee annoying from like the jump? Like, didn't people not like Bumblebee pre-movies?
No.
People liked Bumblebee.
Everybody loved Bumblebee.
From G1, everyone loved Bumblebee.
Yes.
Okay.
He's one of the most popular characters.
I mean, now he is. Like,
he's always been very lovable.
I was really trying to. It was something I was meant to bring up on.
I think what fucked it up was Hot Rod to Hotshot to Bumblebee again, and to Cheetor. They went from character that is relatable to humans and children, Bumblebee, who is this sweet, childish, slightly childish character in the G1 cartoon, less childish in the comics, but still kind of very much relatable to humans. Like, he was like good friends with Buster. But then we brought in the arrogant kind of teenage kind of character, which was Hot Rod, and then Cheetor. And then when they brought back Bumblebee, but didn't have the rights to the name, and they had Hotshot, as it were, they kind of made Hotshot a combination of Hot Rod and Bumblebee. And Bumblebee and Hot Rod kind of started to become the same character for a while. And I think that's where the annoying arrogance comes from, that has been in Bumblebee since. And now it's like a character trait for Bumblebee to be annoying.
Yeah. I mean,
that's my theory, anyway.
I mean, to be fair, I was not there at the time, so I can't. It's just what I remember, how people talked about Bumblebee before the movies, because that is when he almost became the face of the brand at that point. Like, how you couldn't have a poster without Bumblebee, Prime, and Megatron on it. Like,
that's after the movies.
Yeah. After the movies.
Yeah.
Like, where he really just became, like, even with him not talking, he was so recognizable with the brand.
Yeah.
But before that, I don't feel like people liked Bumblebee.
They liked him. He just wasn't. He wasn't Megatron. He wasn't Optimus Prime. But he was definitely in the top 5 most recognizable characters. Definitely.
Okay.
I'd say so. I mean, he's definitely a big deal, and that's why he continues to be a big deal. But enough about how annoying he is. He's very annoying. He wisecracks. He's mentally ill because he's hanging around with like people that he's made out of rubbish because he's been down there on his own for so long. Although he seems to have no problem getting out of there if he wants to, and he's got Steve. What a hilarious joke.
What a ridiculous name, yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, people in the cinema. I was in the cinema, and there were about 6 people in the cinema. This is on the Monday after it was released. This is something we're going to get onto. 2 people were laughing their ass off at every joke. Everyone else silent. So I think those people were as mentally ill as Bumblebee. To be fair.
So, great market research.
So anyway, Orion accidentally beheads Steve, and there's an old beacon from the war inside him which contains coordinates to the Prime's final battle. And Orion instantly believes that must be where the Matrix must be, and convinces. I mean, that's fair enough. And convinces B127 and is it 127?
127.
And D16. D16 is actually a dice. It's a 16-sided dice. But it's also the designation Takara gave Megatron in G1, which is why they've used it. You know, you had C for Cybertrons or good guys, and D for Decepticons. So on the box, it said D16 Megatron. That's where that comes from, in case you didn't know. So he convinces them to investigate, and they do that by stowing away on an automated surface-bound garbage train, because apparently they send all of their rubbish to the surface. I wonder why. Isn't that odd? Why has no one questioned this? They don't.
It was the... They said toxic waste is what they said that we thought it was, and yeah, I do think that was a little strange. I did like that scene though, how Prime convinced D16 to go on, like, to get out, because he was very much like, I'll just stay here and wait for Sentinel to come back.
Didn't he just neg him?
Well, yeah, because he was like, well, you'd just be stuck here with Bumblebee, well, with B127, you know, and realise how annoying he is in such an confined space. He was like, okay, fine, we're not doing, let's go.
Yeah, he just did a bit of kind of like he just manipulated him into leaving. But, I mean, I think D16 did say, I know you're trying to manipulate me, and it's worked.
Yes.
Essentially. They have a very jokey attitude. Yeah. Until they don't.
Until they get to the cave. It's the cave.
It isn't. It isn't, because there's jokes after the cave.
Oh, no. It's just that the tone changes in terms of what they're you know...
Yeah, on a knife edge.
Yeah.
So, coincidentally, Elita 1 is loading the train because she got demoted to waste management. Elita 1 is Scarlett Johansson. She just goes around being dead good at things and kind of like telling the little boys off.
She reminds me...
It's fine. She's all right.
She reminds me a lot of Energon RC and how she used to lead the Omnibots.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, I see what you mean. Well, maybe.
It feels like they really pulled from that character, because it's not like any version of Alita we know.
Isn't it? I think it is.
Is it?
I think it's very much like G1 Alita. Very much like the one that we had in... what was it called?
Oh,
War for Cybertron.
Your favourite series, yeah.
Yeah, very similar to Alita from War for Cybertron. She's just Alita 1. That's what Alita 1 does. She's kind of a tough warrior bot. Well, not warrior. She's not a warrior in this particular instance until she is. But she's tough. She can do everything a male robot can do just as well,
if not better.
And she's a force to be reckoned with. But she's kind of... I don't think she has a lot to do in this movie, really.
She's very focused on just getting a promotion, which I assume in the world of the Transformers at the moment, that's pretty pretty high up there.
Well, yeah, she's focused on climbing the greasy pole.
Yeah,
I think you're probably right.
I mean, and aspirations for what people want in this film is just, it really revolves around that, isn't it? Just like, I want to get a better job.
Yeah. I want to be treated better because we've got this kind of caste system.
It's relatable.
So, action scene. There's a lot of action scenes.
Mm-hmm.
This is one, they chase her and she's trying to get to the front cab to report them to security. But it's too late. They're on the surface and they find it beautiful. And it turns out the planet is slowly transforming, like terraforming, like constantly, which is kind of cool. I kind of like that. I like the idea that the planet is a massive I don't think it's beautiful. It's a massive transformer. I get that idea. They think it's beautiful. I just think it looks like CGI stuff.
Not necessarily the terraforming thing. I like that shot of when they see the surface and they got like this weird, almost like, I don't know, 80s band cover sun in the background of them.
I suppose.
I kind of liked that visual when they get to the surface.
Sure. And so they do that, but then they notice that the planet is terraforming behind them and they get thrown off the train and they fall over and there's jokes. And then they go to a cave where the little ship they founded, Steve, takes them to. And it turns out to be the last resting place of the primes. That they're all there, lying on the floor, dead, deactivated, etc. And they basically notice that I think Orion notices that one of the robots is just deactivated, not dead.
Oh, should probably mention as well, like, D16 really idolizes
Megatronus Prime. Yes, that's true. There's a scene right near the beginning where Optimus gives him a Megatronus Prime decal, which is essentially a Decepticon sticker, and which he slaps on his shoulder.
I thought that was quite nice.
Yeah, I thought it was stupid.
But it really homes in the thing of them being friends, and he knew that it was something that he would like.
Yeah, sure. They're bros. They're constantly fist bumping and being kind of pally with each other. They're best buds. They've known each other for ages, and there's even a scene right at the end of the movie where they show when they first met. So yeah, they're pals, and that is definitely communicated through that. Like, because swinging back to the beginning of the movie, he's running from these people that found him in this archive where he's basically poking around where he shouldn't be looking. That's Orion, that is. And D16 helps him. He causes a distraction so that he can escape. So they're definitely they've got each other's backs. Yeah, essentially. So yeah, you're right. He finds Megatronus Prime's body as well. So he's obviously very upset about that. They're all upset. They're all like, "Oh my god, look, these are the Primes, and they're all dead." Which they kind of already knew that.
Yeah,
but
I think
seeing their bodies, fair enough.
And like how they were kind of, ripped apart, and they had been there for a long time because they had all sort of stuff growing on them, and
moss and so on. Yeah, they're overgrown.
And I think even like they even hint at before they go in or after they go in, and like how Bumblebee is speechless because he doesn't make any. Like, that's what I mean. Like, they pull it back at the right times.
I suppose. I think for me, I was just relieved he wasn't talking.
Well, yeah.
So I wasn't concentrating on, it's a thing that he's not talking. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't notice the absence of him talking.
Right.
I was pleased that I wasn't listening to him, but I wasn't noticing that I wasn't listening to him. So, but I do get what you mean. Yeah, there are points where he's quiet. So yeah, blah 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 blah. They notice that one of the robots isn't actually completely dead. Like, there's a glow from his spark, and it turns out to be Alpha Trion, and they give him the tiniest little energon cube, which that energon cube goes a long fucking way.
I mean, yeah.
So yeah, they give him this energon cube. He basically wakes up. They tell him what's been going on for the past 50 cycles, so because I assume it's 50 cycles. And he's like, no, that's not how it worked. That's not how it went down. Essentially, Sentinel Prime was one of our advisors, and he told us all to come here and all at the same time. and we all stupidly came here all at the same time, and then he ambushed us, and he was in league with the Quintessons, and then he murdered everybody. And then he's shocked to discover that they haven't got transformation cogs, that they can't transform. And he says, well, Sentinel must have taken those from you. Then he says, go outside or something. Go outside, because something's happening, I think. He was
something. He was telling them about the ambush, and then he's like, go have a look outside or something. Yeah.
How does he know?
South of Tryon.
He seems to know everything, doesn't he? So, anyway, he sends them outside, and they witness Sentinel meeting the Quintessons and handing over what they thought was toxic waste in the trains is actually refined energon, big old energon cubes. And essentially, it looks like Sentinel is paying the Quintessons to retain control of the planet.
Yeah.
So he's basically in debt to the Quintessons. They don't exactly make this implicit, but I guess the idea is that they're like, we'll leave your planet alone as long as you keep giving us energon.
Yeah. And
you can continue your farce of being the leader of the Transformers. That was the deal, but you have to keep giving us energon.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of may have been like part of the deal because of the whole Matrix thing as well. Maybe like you were saying before about him looking for it, and what other reason would he want it for? Because obviously when the Matrix left, the energon supply is drained out.
Yeah.
And desperate times called for desperate measures.
Oh yeah, he had to adapt his plan, I assume.
Yeah,
because he's like, oh shit, now I've got to find a way to get the energon that I've promised the Quintessons without the Matrix, and that way is to basically turn a bunch of Transformers into a kind of slave class that will dig it up for me, because that's the only way we're going to get energon. Otherwise, we can't get it the way we normally. It'd just be there.
Yeah.
Flowing all over the place in rivers and shit. But because the Matrix is gone, it isn't anymore. So they see that deal, and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe it, he's a baddie. And D16's like, oh, he's betrayed us. Then they all get given cogs, so they all get upgraded. Now, transformation in this movie is like having superpowers, essentially. You get a transformation cog, and all of a sudden you are good at combat, you know how to use weaponry, you can transform.
Sure.
Yeah, like you basically get a massive upgrade.
It's a bit hard to really know what people are capable of combat wise, because the only one who really the two that really hone that in is Alita and Prime. I feel like Bumblebee is just doing flailing around, and D16 is really it takes a while for, I feel like, them to get good at doing the things they can do.
About 15 seconds.
I feel like Alita was great.
2 minutes.
Great from the get-go. And
they all are.
Empathy, like, I just
I think Alita's already quite competent without the transformation cog. But I just mean that they're suddenly so much better at everything.
No, I do understand that, yeah.
Like, and I kind of understand it, but it feels like some of that stuff should be learnt rather than just given to them. But it's fine. But yeah, they get transformation cogs, but then I think Arachnid had noticed them, so Sentinel turns up. Even though Sentinel knows where this cave is anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, he could have gone there before. Like, did you just go, oh, I'm just going to assume Alpha Trion's dead and walk away and leave it 50 cycles? And that's that.
As far as he was concerned, they were all dead, yeah. He didn't...
Yeah, I didn't bother to check. Didn't bother to check. Not that wouldn't be important.
He didn't double tap, no.
No. And they go to this cave, and Alpha Trion is really quite... that little bit of energon went a long way, because he's able to transform, has a big fight with them, and they're able to escape. As in our heroes are able to escape. Mm-hmm. Orion, D16, Alita, and face. They're all able to escape. and they do have a kind of comedy, I'm learning how to transform, falling down the side of a cliff, and it's really funny, and everyone in the cinema laughs, and then they eventually get away. But then by the end of that chase, they're brilliant at everything.
I like the bit at the end where they of all at the end of the hill, and one of the Viacons or whatever they're called are about to blast Prime and Alita, and Megatron shoots them in his tank mode, and then like transforms and like really stamps on the robot's body and is laughing at her like he can do this now. Like it's a kind of the dissension or the transition. It kind of is really hinted at, and in terms of like the not having the cog, I feel really was holding back like what he thought he was capable of, and
from being a psychopath.
Yes, basically, it's like
so you're saying he was a psychopath from the beginning, and not having a cog meant he had to be like a nice person.
Essentially, yeah. Like I feel like he always had the capability of it, but
I feel that switch is too sudden and too badly explained in the movie, to be honest.
There's hints of it as they go on from this point.
But you can hint it, but like, don't make him such a nice guy at the beginning.
It's like what I'm saying. It's the cave, when he gets into the cave and he finds out the truth, and he has a real go at Orion, blaming him for bringing this knowledge to him, because he's like, if you didn't do this, everything would have been fine. Why did you bring me here? Everything's got to be about you and your crusade of being better. I was fine doing what I was doing.
Sure, but that's a long way away from I'm going to kill everyone.
He wants to kill Sentinel. He says it.
Well, yeah, but that's understandable because he's betrayed him and he idolized that guy. And I totally get that. It's when he just decides that he wants to kill everyone that I find a problem. Like, he basically just becomes, I'm just going to murder anyone who gets in my way from now on. And that just feels a little bit like, hang on, you weren't that kind of person 15 minutes ago. Why? I mean, Optimus Prime doesn't become a different person when he gets a cog, No. Sorry, Orion Ghia. I'm Orion Ghia. Orion Pax does not become a different person. Alita does not become a different person. Bumblebee does not become a different person.
That's what I'm hinting at.
Apart from Optimus Prime does become a different person when he gets the Matrix. But we'll get onto that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really... It's when, like, a traumatic revelation like this hit these characters, the whole aspect of this point now on is like what you were talking about earlier about the two different styles of, people like Professor X and Magneto, and how they see the problem and how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And even though it's coming from a place of like good intentions, they are choosing dramatically different ways of solving the problem. Like
Agreed.
Orion's focus is very much, we need to tell everybody what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to know the truth. Whereas D16's focus is, I need to kill Sentinel for what he's done, and there's going to be no mercy, and I'm going to kill him in front of people and then tell him what happened. Like,
sure.
That is definitely the focus once they leave.
Sure. But portray those people as having those kind of beliefs earlier on, so it's not so jarring.
I mean, yeah.
I don't think that D16 was characterized like that until that point. And you can go, oh, it's the trauma. Oh, he's, he idolized this guy, and he's seen both the Megatronus Prime, who he idolized, has been murdered by another guy he idolized. I get why he's angry at Sentinel Prime. Mm-hmm. I totally understand. And I totally understand why he's angry at Orion for kind of going, no, we can't do it that way. We need to tell everybody. We need to do, we need to go down the route of justice here rather than vengeance. But portray him as being a little bit more like that earlier on, then you don't feel it so jarring. I felt it was jarring, and I think a lot of people did. I don't think I'm alone on this.
I know. I did hear some comments of people who had a similar thing, more towards the end. Than that, but
well,
yes.
I know you're bringing it up now, but I don't think that that's so clear. Yes, he gets a bit carried away with his new powers. He gets a bit power mad, right? and he's just so happens to have like the most warlike alt mode. And maybe that's something to do with, maybe that's who he was always supposed to be, and maybe by taking his cog away, that maniac was hidden somehow. Maybe. That might be a way of explaining it. But it does feel jarring.
I know, I think it's, I agree, like it could have maybe had a scene or two to maybe depict that side of it, but
yeah,
at the same time, I feel I'm fine with what they decided to show to a point, because obviously I am a Transformers fan. I fill in blanks and I don't question things in the way that, you know, Joe Public will, in terms of who these characters are. I can't never I can't not switch that off in watching the film. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't need it all explained to me in the same type of way, and it's hard to then kind of speak on it and like, well, it's obvious because of A, Y, and B sourcing the 14 different origins we've had for these characters,
which no one is supposed to know. Like this movie was supposed to be a launch pad for a younger generation of fans.
No, I get that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think that it's yes, it is. It's a change that comes quickly, but I don't think it doesn't need to be played in as depthly in this film. Like the film runs so like I don't. With the other films, there's so many points where they stop and they explain lore, and the film grinds to a halt, and there's just explanation. Like you don't.
But no
need
one's
it.
No one's asking for
but
that.
you would.
No one's asking. No, I don't think so.
No.
I think it's just smart. It's smart tourist storytelling. You didn't have to make the starting point. Optimus and Optimus and D16 are the same. You could have made them different personalities, and they didn't have very different personalities. And then they did have very different personalities by the end. The trouble, I think that, and apparently in an earlier version of this movie, Optimus and I don't know I'm not sure actually, but I think it might have been that Optimus was a miner, and Megatron fought in like a gladiatorial pit.
Well, that is the main. Well,
and that would explain his bloodthirstiness and his anger and his nastiness much better.
Yes, well, that is like the more.
But that's an example of how you could have done it.
I know. I mean, that is the more example canon pre, characters as we know them standard. It's either that Prime was a librarian, or he was someone who to deal with them, or the working class, and Megatron was even below that in like the pits as some sort of gladiator or warrior.
Well, Megatron was working class, and Prime was kind of upper working class, middle class, kind of that kind of area.
It's always kind of, well, apart from like Generation 1, where it's completely different.
Well, not completely. There's definitely bits of that in Generation 1.
I mean, Megatron just turns up.
No,
and Prime, but Orion Pax is the same.
If you're just talking about the cartoon, which is dumb, sure. But I mean, if you look at the comics, there was stuff about him being a gladiator. Like there was stuff in there. Like it did happen. Like so. But yeah, I'm just saying we've spoken about this way too long. But absolutely, I just think it's jarring, and I will not be convinced it's not.
Okay.
It is. It doesn't ruin the movie. It just feels a bit like, come on, guys, you could have been less clumsy. You could have made that feel more fluid. And it feels more like that you just suddenly... But we're just going over old ground over and over, I think.
Yeah. I mean, only thing I would add to it is that this film, it does need some of these questions answered in some way, and like in most other interpretations of Transformers, that normally would come with like a television show or another form depicting in the same universe to pull and expand on. I'm not so sure that's going to happen for this. I would like it to.
And also, other movie series get along without that, So,
I mean,
I would say you don't need it. Extra material should be there for people who want to read extra material. The movie should stand on its own.
I think but that's the thing. I think it does. I'm just saying that I think...
Oh, I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying that hand-waving and saying, oh, yeah, but they can explain that somewhere else. It's like, no, you need to explain it here. It has to be in the movie. Like, you can't just say, oh, well, it's in a comic book. It explains exactly why he does that. It's like, well, that's cool, but I've not read that. Moving on. Because we've talked about that way too long, and it isn't even the point at which it becomes most jarring. So, guys, we're not even going to talk about it when it becomes most jarring. We're going to mention it for a second and move on. So, they are then immediately captured by a bunch of Seekers, who, and when they come around, Bumblebee is gagged, because that's funny. Oh, he wouldn't shut up. What, even when I was unconscious? Especially when you were unconscious, says Shockwave. Ha 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 ha.
I thought it was funny.
So, we've got the Cybertron High Guard, who are prisoners, who've taken them prisoner. We've never heard of the Cybertron High Guard up until now.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, it feels like they could have been mentioned earlier.
Orion. Alpha Trion does mention them, because he says something about they are called for backup and they called for the High Guard.
Okay, all right. So that's who these guys are, and they're essentially the Decepticons. Like, all of them, every single fucking one of them is a Decepticon. There's not a single person who you think isn't an Autobot. You know what I mean? Like, they're all Decepticons. They've basically been fighting a guerrilla war against the Quintessons ever since the fall of the Primes. They're led by Starscream, who is voiced by... it's gone out of my head all of a sudden. Steve Buscemi. So he's voiced by Steve Buscemi, and you can tell it's Steve Buscemi, which is really cool, until they immediately give Starscream's voice an origin story, which is kind of dumb, and then his voice changes. So...
Oh, I mean...
He only really sounds like Steve Buscemi for about 5 minutes.
Well, because Megatron chokes the hell out of him.
Yeah, Megatron crushes his windpipe, and he goes all kind of screechy and loud and kind of typical Starscream.
Okay, I'm not sure. That's not what I took from it, but
that's what happens. By the time he's talking later on, when he's being captured by Sentinel Prime, he's talking in that high pitched voice.
Yeah.
And it's because of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what did you take from it?
Oh, I just took it as like
his voice changed all of a sudden.
His voice changed. His voice changed because of the cold crushed vocal cords, I suppose. But I didn't think that it was going to be like he was going to stick like that forever, and that's not what I.
Well, maybe he won't. I don't know. But it does feel a bit like that, doesn't it? But anyway, D16 kicks off and fights Starscream, crushing his voice box, and he produces a massive cannon from his arm. And it's like, ooh, and it's very G1. At this point, he's looking very G1. He's looking very comic book G1. He's got like the darker helmet and so on.
No, well, he loses that, doesn't he? When he gets.
Oh, does he lose it now? Yeah. Does he have it when he looks like everybody else?
Mm.
Yeah, when he's cogless. Anyway, he does look a bit like that. And they fight, and it's kind of like, that's kind of the way that the High Guard works. So they gain some respect for him because he's kind of like, trial by combat kind of thing. And he's basically, it's all this kind of like, I'm not being pushed around anymore kind of business, okay? Thing. Which, I get it. I understand that. And that is character development, and I like that. Absolutely. Like I said, I do think it works. I just think some of the more kind of murdery stuff doesn't. And then Sentinel Arachnids' forces turn up, as it were. They ambush them. And Orion and Alita wake up in rubble and find out that D16B and a lot of the High Guard have been taken prisoner. And the data crystal... Yeah, we forgot to mention that there was a data... Alpha Trion gave Orion Pax data crystal thing made out of sand or whatever, that basically told the story of that showed what Sentinel did. So he was going to use that as proof, right, when he got back home. But that's been destroyed. Orion despairs, believing the quest to be hopeless, But then there's a sappy speech from Elita 1 about how he's an optimist. He's Optimist Prime. And that's what's great about him. And that's why she'll follow him into anything.
I mean, I'm not sure that's the thing. I'm not sure that's the exact quotes.
It's roughly that.
But I mean, that's. I mean, I don't understand what was the problem with the speech.
I'm not saying it's a problem. I think I just found it a bit sappy.
I think there's another thing that we've got to talk about in the battle with the brief scrap with Starscream and D16. When they're all chanting for him and he gets up and he's like, got Starscream by the throat. There's another type of slow pan to his eyes turning from like yellow to orange, and like it's a real kind of. And there's a look out of Orion looking at him like oh shit, like this.
What's wrong with his eyes?
Yeah, what are you doing? Like this.
Yeah, but anyway, so now she's basically giving him a pep talk. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay, all right, I've come up with a plan, and he lists the help of the High Guard, and he says transform and roll out, and everyone cheers. And once again, Sentinel, because this happened earlier actually, I forgot to mention that Sentinel takes Alpha Trion back to his tower, where everyone can see him. He goes, I know what would be a really good idea. I could interrogate Alpha Trion here in the cave, but instead I'll take him to my tower where everyone can someone might just see me doing it and then wonder why Alpha Trion's here and we thought he was dead. But I'll do that anyway. And he does it again. He takes all of these people to his tower in Iacon. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's meant to be pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. But he takes his prisoners home with him in plain sight. And then he openly gloats to his prisoners about how he's deceived everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, what if one of them got away?
Well,
he's basically just he's just doing that kind of like, I'm the villain and now I'm going to tell you my plan.
Well, he did, because someone does answer that, like, what are you going to do? Why are we still alive? Why are you telling us this? And he was like, oh, well, because you guys are traitors. You guys have been working with the Quintessons to disrupt my plans, and you're all going to be, executed as, working against the state. Like, he had a plan of some description to keep them alive and bring them there.
I understand his reasoning, but I think he could be less. He could be smarter about it. I think, but I understand his reasoning. Yeah, and I suppose it works because he's like, yeah, we've captured you, and you're all going to be executed.
Yeah, I get it. I kind of like it's the bit before, isn't it? Yeah, you're talking with Alpha Trion, that whole him talking to him about what the Primes were doing before, and like he was sick of it. Like, you guys just talking around in your pompous meetings of the time about how you were losing the war, and like, and then how he executes Alpha Trion, quite brutally, and just kind of brushes it off, like, well, get rid of the body, type of thing.
No, he's a bastard. He's really not a nice guy, and I do like him. I just think that there's one or two times where he could be cleverer, and considering he's managed to deceive the entire populace for 50 cycles, you'd think he'd be better at it, But I mean, that's just a small thing. I still think it works. I don't think it's a big problem, and it's in service of the plot, which means that all of that. Optimus and not Optimus. We all know Orion Ghia. Orion Pax is Optimus. We all know that. For God's sake, we're all Transformers fans. Let's not pretend we don't know. So Orion Pax and Elita 1 and the remainder of the High Guard can kind of come in, and we can have this big kind of battle in Iacon. I mean, it's kind of for that reason, really. D16 kind of stands up to him again, pretty much doing exactly what he did with the High Guard, really.
But it's more like everyone.
It's more personal.
It's more personal, but it's more. I think it really cements to the High Guard, like, oh, this guy meant what he said earlier. Like, he really is going to stand up to him.
Oh yeah. It's still that it's still that I won't be pushed around thing, but but in this case, it's defiance against the guy who he wants dead, essentially, who he blames for everything, who he sees as he betrayed him. He feels betrayed by Sentinel, and he feels that Sentinel needs to pay for that.
Yeah, and I think it's handled well. Like it's one of it's.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. I think it is handled well.
And I even it's like Sentinel can't help but be like a little bit of a dick and like, oh, you like Megatronus Prime? I like it's like your sticker. Yeah, it's why I took his cog for myself.
Yeah, that's fine. I do like that. I'm not so sure. The bit where he welds, he takes the sticker and like uses it as a template to kind of etch the logo onto his chest. I mean, that's just making him into that's kind of helping him, because that's making him into something special, which I don't think Sentinel thought through.
I mean, Sentinel probably didn't think he was going to last much longer. It's like,
no, maybe not. But why? I mean, it's just a weird thing to do, and it's kind of the real reason is because it's the Decepticon logo, and it'll end up on his chest, and it'll be the what the Decepticons will be. But it's fine. But no, I know what you mean. I do think that the whole kind of and I stole Megatronus's cog obviously sends him off the deep end.
Yeah,
and that works. Like I said, I think if you'd started all this a little bit earlier, I think it would flow better. But once it gets going, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit later where again it's like, really? Are you really that evil? But yeah, okay. And then Orion arrives and he kind of uses his smokestacks as like shoulder rockets, and this is what I mean about the cog and being a transformer being kind of like, well, having a transformation cog basically giving you superpowers. It's just like it makes you bigger and better and stronger, and you have built-in weaponry, and you can transform, and you're really good at everything now. They're all pretty amazing at what they do now. Yeah. And they've literally had these transformation cogs less than a day.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he kind of meets. He goes and kind of meets with the miners and kind of starts a rebellion, I guess.
It's really interesting, like what he says to them, because he doesn't full out tell them what happened. He just tells them that he's been lying and he took the cogs, but he didn't like go into all of it.
Well, I think that's the big thing for them, though, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing that would hit home the most.
Yeah.
If you tell a bunch of people who've been unable to transform or been stunted their entire life, mm-hmm. and been treated like, because of this disability they have, I guess, because it's kind of a disability. It's a able-bodyist kind of thing against, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that kind of idea of like, you're lesser because you can't do this. And to be told that they're lesser because they were made that way, mm-hmm. I mean, that's far more upsetting than hearing that he murdered the 13 Primes.
Oh yeah, no,
I think
no, I agree. Like it's handled well, and that's the moment where Orion really feels like the potential for him to be like a leader, or to like bring out the best in the society, as it were. He's not doing it to like for some sort of like fame and glory, or to like look at. He's really more doing it for the people, and that's the turning point for him, versus the kind of similar talk D16 has with the High Guard earlier, where he's like, you're all going to be with me, and I'm going to march on Icon, and we're going to,
burn it to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Like, instead of sitting here with your crap leader in his chair, come with me and we're going to, like, fuck shit up, It's
like what I'm saying, like, it's the difference between somebody who believes in justice and someone who believes in vengeance.
Yeah.
And Optimus believes in justice and believes in freedom. And I guess D16 does believe in freedom, but he believes... obviously we've got the whole kind of like, peace through tyranny thing, but like, he believes in freedom, but he believes in survival of the fittest as well, and he also believes in people should be punished for their crimes quite harshly. I mean, very, very harshly. Yeah. Like, full stop.
I mean, to be fair, I'm with him with the crime Sentinel's committed. I mean...
Well, I'm glad you're not in charge of the justice system. That's all I can say.
I mean, he did do some pretty terrible things, and not.
Sure.
It's like I was saying.
Sure.
It's like I was saying earlier. Like I always kind of knew that Sentinel was going to be a bad guy, but I didn't know to what level of bad guy he was going to be. And it's they do things throughout the film to really home in. Like he's not bad. He's enjoying being this bad, and like he's like it's a nice change of pace for like the character depictions, and it's Sentinel has always kind of been a bit of a dick in other media, but this
I don't know anything about. I mean, I suppose in
animated as well. It's like I always think of it's like him being
yeah.
a bit of a prick, but he kind of had like a bit of a redeeming quality to him in animated anyway. Like it's
well, he wasn't an arsehole.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he was a prick, but he wasn't an arsehole.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
He was just not a very nice good guy.
I thought there could have been a bit of that in this, but there no.
Yeah, agreed. So he enlists the miners. The miners join the fight in their jetpacks, which they had when they were flying around mining, and the train that has been hijacked by the High Guard and Elite One kind of flies towards the and basically crashes into. Well, at first, Arachnid kind of gets involved, and then it crashes into Sentinel's tower, and there's a big fight. And Prime gets an idea, which I don't know how well this stacks up. He's like, oh, she literally has eyes in the back of her head, and she records everything. We could use this, right? But I mean, I don't know. Don't they all have optics? Don't they all record their memories? They're robots, so like okay, yes, sure, I get it. It's totally a story device and it works, and I've got no problem with it. But it's like, yeah, I mean, you could basically drag Sentinel to a console and plug his brain in and replay stuff through his eyes. Like she's not special, is she?
I guess it's more because they know that she's his
always there,
his right hand, and he's probably seen a lot of incriminating things.
That's the way I took it. That's the way I took it, because it wasn't really the way he explained it. It kind of almost made it like she had a superpower for seeing things, and it was like it's more that she's just his right hand lady. She's his closest confidant, and she's always there when he's committing these war crimes, essentially.
And that's why he likes having her around, because she can, like, she's always the one to notice, like an attack or something, or when notice things. Like he likes having her around to keep her eyes open.
Yes, yeah, she's his security.
I think he says that at some point. He's like, keep your eyes open. It's like they always are, type of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean no. I mean obviously she's very astute, very aware of her surroundings, more so than most people. But but it does make sense. So he gets this idea of like, oh well, she will have been there every time he's committed these things. So that the evidence, which to be honest, the evidence he had was a bit shaky, because it's like, where did you find this weird little sand timer thing, and what is it, and who made it, and who can prove it's even true?
We'll never know.
You know. But whereas this is more believable.
This is more tangible, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they had the fight. There's a big fight. Basically, the rest of the movie is a big fight. Mm-hmm. Huge kind of the whole kind of fight spills out into the city, and Alita fights Arachnid, and basically drags her to a broadcast station. Which, yes, I did notice that one of the towers looked like the one that Blaster was in Transformers the movie. Mm-hmm. And Bumblebee is both annoying and a psychopath now. Just slicing people up, going, look at me, I can stab people and murder them. Oh, they're brilliant. Look at me, I'm murdering people. It's like, okay. And then you're going to have a problem with Megatron doing it?
And like this is where there's a question mark on whether these are like drones or other sentient beings, because he does say that he gets the swords, he slices through a bunch of people, and he's like, oh Orion, look, I've got sword hands, look, I'm gonna slice these guys, and the two guys run away. Yeah. Which I do find
so
quite
they must be sentient.
I find quite funny. But
so they're not just drones, they can't be, because of the, like, so he's just going, look at me, I'm gonna murder these guys, and say, hang on. And now you're going to get all self-righteous about D16? Like, so, but I know why it's there, because it's meant to be funny, and it's meant to be it's like, oh yeah, but it does feel a little bit kind of like, what? Okay. But yeah, so he's a psycho now. Like, he slices up that broadcast center for no reason.
Yeah.
But they basically broadcast what Arachnid has seen, what she's witnessed. Although occasionally the footage is not from her point of view.
It's not important. I don't get why all movies do this, and it's so annoying. It's...
Like some of the footage, she's in some of the footage.
Yeah.
Does she have little eyes that fly off and like film from a distance? Maybe she does. Maybe she does. I mean, it's possible, but it wasn't made clear that was the case. But it's fine. It's okay. Like I say, it's movies. They do this a lot. But basically, they broadcast what Sentinel has done to the whole city, to all of Iacon, on massive screens and shit. I get the feeling that there's just Iacon. Maybe there are other cities. Maybe there's more Cybertron. But it feels like you don't see anything outside Iacon. Iacon is Iacon City, and that's that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't really touch on it or like how big Iacon is.
I mean, it's huge. Absolutely,
it is huge. But like,
and it's kind of it's on two levels, as in basically. I mean, people who've seen the movie will know, but you have skyscrapers coming out of the ground and the ceiling because it's up. It's underground, so it is like it's like two cities on top of each other in a way.
Oh, I like it.
Oh yeah. I think visually it looks good. But yeah, it's huge. So yeah. But it does feel. I'm sure there are other cities, and knowing he's beaten because all this time, Sentinel's being beaten to shit by. He's not calling himself Megatron yet, D16. And knowing he's beaten, knowing that everyone knows what's going on, he basically says to D16, he offers him a chance to rule together. He begs for mercy. And I'm so glad they didn't kind of like go in hard on kind of references to you who begs for mercy. You could have done that, you know what I mean? You know, that kind of like...
I was going to bring this up. I'm like, it shows, this film shows a lot of restraint in making... There are Easter eggs in it, and there are things that hint at previous films. You know, there's a few throwaway lines here and there, but it's not as heavy as I was expecting it to be.
I 100% agree with you on that one. Absolutely.
Like, it was very subtle, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, because there was one bit really early on where I thought, are you really...
They say, like, you've not got the touch or the power or something.
That's it.
You know?
That's it. That's the one. That's the one. And I was like, oh, no, please don't. Please don't make this an hour and 45 minutes of this. I will have to leave. I won't be able to handle it. Yeah, she does say, it's Alita. She says to Orion, oh, you haven't got the touch, you haven't got the power. Which is obviously a reference to the touch. From the original Transformers, the movie 86. But no, you're right. It is quite restrained in that regard. There isn't kind of like, say the line, which happens in a lot of stuff. And they could have totally gone for it here. Like, because he's begging him for mercy, they could have switched the script and have Megatron say the Optimus line to Sentinel. But he didn't, you know? So... that was cool, but like basically D6 is like, no, fuck that. Like, I'm not teaming up with you. I'm gonna murder you. You're gonna die. And at that point, Orion turns up and says, you can't just murder him. We've got to be better than these people, essentially. Which I don't disagree with. You can put him, you can lock him up. You can put him on trial. You can do whatever. But D6 is having none of it. Knocks Orion aside.
Like, move or I will move you type of thing, like,
Yeah. And he raises his damaged cannon arm with the other arm to kill Sentinel. And then, what happens?
Well, Orion jumps in the way.
He does, yes, and gets a huge hole straight through his chest, knocking him off the platform they're on. Yes,
and at the last moment, D16 catches the other hand that he's got left, and he's like, "Why did you do that? Like, why?"
he can't quite believe why he jumped in front of that, because he doesn't really get it. Like, he's not. And that's the thing, like, and this is D16 being the D16 from the beginning of the movie, who he seems to have stopped. You know, like, it's like a flash of that guy, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
But then he flashes back to who he is now, and I think his eyes turn red.
His eyes turn red, and he's like, "I'm done saving you," or something along those lines, and he just lets him go. He's like, "I'm done with this. Like, I'm
done saving you from your mistakes," something like that. And Orion falls through the planet, and then D16's arm gets miraculously better, and then he... Did you notice that?
I mean, yeah,
I did notice that. I was like, he was holding his arm up before to shoot him, and now he's just fine. In fact, he's so fine he can rip Sentinel in two.
Yeah.
So he basically lifts Sentinel above his head and tears him in half. Like, it's pretty fucking brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty brutal. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's cool. But wow. Okay. That's who you are now.
I mean,
you just rip people in half. Like, you know, that's the kind of person you are now.
This scene, I really love it. Like, I really like the music, the pacing, everything about this whole moment. That
I didn't notice any of the music at all in this entire movie. I just would like to highlight that I didn't notice any of the movie music, any of the score. Nothing stood out to me. So I don't remember any of it. You said, let's talk about the music. I'm like, what music? I don't remember it.
There's a lot of just the orchestra that plays and the synths and all of that going on at this moment. I think it works really well, and the kind of like, I mean, they do it a lot in films where like one character is rising, another one is descending into something.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it works really well in terms of how it's told story-wise. And we have a little moment with, you know, Orion falling into the pit of Primus, and he gets a little vision of the previous primes, kind of giving them, like, you know, their approval of him.
Yeah, you have a juxtaposition of what's going on with D16 and what's going on with Orion.
But the two are transitioning into, you know, the two characters that we know,
into two very unreasonable people. I do think that it's like the problem with humanizing Megatron is always that you're going to make Optimus look like a dick, and they still manage to do it a little bit in this. Anyway. Yeah, and D16 rips the cog out of Sentinels and takes Megatronus' cog, which gives him another upgrade. Mm-hmm. And he declares himself Megatron, so he's even bigger and better and stronger. But at the same time, Optimus Prime is being selected. He's basically fallen through to the centre of Cybertron and has been selected by Primus to be the new leader of the Autobots, and is gifted the Matrix of Leadership, which reformats him into a more Optimus Prime kind of body, and he is now Optimus Prime, apparently. Mm-hmm. Megatron just goes, I'm Megatron! Mm-hmm. Okay, fine, fair enough. And Optimus Prime is Optimus Prime because he's an optimist, as we got from Alita. That's what she said. And he's shot back to the surface to be the self-righteous prick we all know and love. And Megatron is angry for no discernible reason that Orion is both not dead and has been chosen to carry the Matrix's leadership. You'd think he'd be happy about it.
It always kind of, ever since like a line continuity and stuff, where they really drove in that thing of Primus chose Orion, to become the leader, and there's always that kind of like resentment from Megatron of not being chosen, and he kind of is not as worthy esteemed by Primus.
Sure.
And I feel like it's one of those tipping points of like, but you're like, why would he have chosen you? You're an idiot. Like, you know, like, you are not what we need. Like, what I'm envisioning is what we need.
Sure.
You know?
But this is where you sit down and have a talk about it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You know?
What type of... Could you imagine? It's like...
This is where you go, all right, we don't agree, but let's just try and find a way forward. But no one does that. No one's reasonable. No one is reasonable at this point. No one, I mean, I can understand why Megatron's not reasonable, but Optimus is not reasonable either.
I could see that working with like Sentinel, but I don't.
But these guys were friends.
They were.
These guys were friends. So why are they being... I do understand why Megatron is unreasonable, but I don't understand why Optimus is unreasonable. Megatron is really, really angry at him. Maybe I get it. Maybe it's because, he was chosen to be the leader and he feels that he doesn't deserve it and he shouldn't be because of all the mistakes he's made and how he kind of resents him, right?
Yeah,
for whatever
he says it.
I do sort of get that. I get that, right? But then they immediately start fighting. Mm-hmm. And it's, Optimus has got an Energon axe. Woo! Okay.
That's the best that Energon axe has looked in a long time.
It just looks like an Energon axe to me, mate. And Megatron's cannon gets chopped up. Boo! Mm-hmm. And then Optimus he just unilaterally chooses to use no diplomacy, no reason, no judicial system to settle this. I mean, he was angry at Megatron for executing Sentinel Prime, who is a terrible, terrible criminal, right? Mm-hmm. He was angry at him for doing that. Mm-hmm. And he was like, we shouldn't kill him. We shouldn't be like him. And then he says, right, I'm not going to reason with you. I'm not going to talk to you. Instead, I'm going to banish you and all of the High Guard, even the ones who probably just went along with you. You have all got to fuck off. Immediately. Get out of my city. He's beaten Megatron. Mm-hmm. He's beaten him. Mm-hmm. And instead of going, old friend, come on, can we not, settle our differences? Can we not deal with this in a diplomatic way? Can we not talk? He says, fuck off and take them with you. Have an army. Go take that army with you and go out there, out onto the surface and foster hatred towards me so that we can have a civil war. Because that really will make sure that we can continue this franchise of Autobots, because I'm going to declare everybody Autobots in a minute, and Decepticons having a fight, because the reasonable thing would be for me to talk to you and to sort it out, but no, I have to banish you for no reason. Bye, all of you, you two, and you Starscream, and you Shockwave, and you Soundwave, and you Thrust, even though you probably didn't do anything. And you as well, and every one of you who is actually really a Decepticon, because that's what was preordained and has to be done. And I felt like, well, why? Why is he doing that?
It was his first day on the job.
It's a shit day on the job.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably where I would probably chime in.
It was more like, we've got 5 minutes of the movie left. I
was going to say, this is where, maybe this extra, a little bit more could have been done at this point in terms of this interaction once he comes back.
Yeah.
I can agree with this, because some other things about the film where people were wanting some extra things, it's fine. But this, okay, maybe in another 10 minutes or so, but I mean,
it just feels like they've got to wrap it up.
It feels like it's got to wrap it up, but I still don't think that it's bad. I feel like I'm fine with it. And even the shot they do of him, High Guard, follow me, and he goes off, and then they do the thing where he does the flashback of the first time they met, and he's looking at him, and he's like, that was my friend, type of thing.
Sure, which is why I just feel like that's why it feels jarring that the two of them would come out so far apart from each other. And for Optimus is meant to be the reasonable one, and he's not being reasonable. But this damages his character a bit.
It's what he says to him. It's like I can't remember the words. He says something along the lines of, he's betrayed Cybertron or Icon or whatever, but you've also betrayed me. Like, it's just because you've done this to me. I mean, bloody hell, you let me go, mate. I'm not over it, you know. What about, it's not your feelings, what about mine? You know, well, just because you've done this to me as a friend, like,
sure,
you know.
And I do get it, and I do see where Orion or Optimus's his feeling of betrayal come from, but he's supposed to be the leader and he's supposed to rise above that a bit, and it feels like he doesn't, and it feels a little bit kind of like, and it's a bit weird how everyone's fine with that. Like, Alita and Bumblebee, they're fine with that. They're like, yeah, bye, friend. See ya. Off you go. Like, they don't... That's what I mean. I think it is kind of... We need to establish the status quo, which is Autobots versus Decepticons. We need to get that in now.
Well, they do...
It feels like... Could you not just do that? I mean, if you are setting it up for, like, another movie, could you not just do that at the beginning of the next movie? Like, could you not just have that battle happen and Megatron maybe be put in chains or something and put in prison or whatever, rather than the very kind of bad kind of decision of going, you leave and take some of the most powerful transforming robots with you and go out there and seethe for a while, please.
Maybe...
It doesn't seem like a smart idea to me. You know?
I mean, sure. I mean, I get what you're saying, but like at the same time, like I feel like I'm just not so sure it would have worked to have like a sit-down conversation. Like if it really would have. Like I feel like it's gone past the point where you know your friend is not going to listen to reason or listen to you anymore. Like he can't play his manipulation tactics and try and get him to agree on something. He knows he's gone past that. Like it's not. Sure. He just like he knows him well enough to be like, look, just go, mate. Look, I have a timeout. Maybe we'll talk another time. Like
sure, but this is war. Like people are dying. It isn't just a disagreement. You know, it isn't like maybe we both need to cool off. Like he's murdered people. Like.
Yeah, but I mean, they've all murdered someone.
Oh yeah, but you know, we've all done that, haven't we?
We took someone offline. Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm definitely. I mean, if in years to come, it turns out that you're a serial killer, and this podcast proves. It's you admitting that you murder people, then that'll be interesting. But my point is right.
All in the Netflix documentary, guys. The truth behind Arc My Optics.
But my point is that when a battle in a war ends with a victory, you don't just tell the opposite side they can go home or they can go away and then they can come back later. You know, it is a bit kind of, I don't know. It's fine. It works because it's about getting it wrapped up. But it does feel a little bit kind of like, well, that's a really an unreasonable way to deal with it, and you're supposed to be the reasonable one.
I guess I guess another thing we have to kind of think about is like we're really thinking about it in the terms that there is some sort of justice system and prison and all, like we don't know if that even exists because everyone just keeps getting demoted to lower levels of Cybertron. You
are right. You are right.
We don't know if there is anything like that set up already. Like it probably Sentinel wouldn't have wanted a justice system hanging about looming over him. Like probably wouldn't the first bloody thing to go.
Essentially, and like I'm saying, like Optimus Prime's leader now because he's got a trinket.
Yeah, well.
That's the only reason he's like. There was no election.
I mean, it's called the Matrix of Leadership. It comes with the job, you know.
You get a Matrix of Leadership. You're in charge. It's like you get a crown. You're in charge. It's that. So now the Matrix is back. Energon starts to flow once more, which I sort of thought was one of Sentinel's lies, but it wasn't. Everyone gets a transformation cog for some reason. Don't ask how. They just do. Primus. They just come out of nowhere. Don't know where they came from. They just fly out of wherever Sentinel was keeping them. just the lids of the boxes just flip open and out they come, and everyone gets one.
Actually, I will say something about this because there is one thing and I wonder if it was a deleted thing from the film. because they do hint at, earlier on in the film, where they first meet Bumblebee, they gloss over the fact that he's on sub-level 40, and they all look at each other like, I thought there was only 30 sub-levels.
Something like that, yeah.
And I thought when they were going to have to go to the surface, they were going to see something. In those 10 is where he was removing the cogs.
Oh, I see. See, this is the kind of thing that might have been useful. I think that there should have been a few things here and there which hinted at stuff a bit more. But
I wouldn't be amazed if that was left on the cutting room floor. Like, I would imagine that because they really do gloss over it. Like, there's a whole 10 sub-levels that no one's ever seen or know that exists. That'd be the perfect place to remove cogs before people come online.
Yeah, why mention it if it doesn't mean something?
I wonder if that is part of what was meant to be in the story.
Well, you might be right. I mean, I think I do love the running time of this movie, but it's a great length. I hate movies that are over 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Not all movies are over 2 hours, but I prefer a movie to be under 2 hours. But it does feel like they do gloss over things a little bit too often, and that would have helped. I think something like that.
Yeah, could have had a real nice moment of that's where the cogs have come from or whatever. But I mean, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. And then Optimus declares all of his followers Autobots, and apparently in a post-credit scene, Megatron rechristens himself and all of his followers Decepticons. But I don't stick around for post-credit scenes on a matter of principle. So I didn't see that. Yes, that does happen, and yeah, I mean it's fine. Like I don't mind that was thrown in at the end. I have more of a problem with the.
I don't think things that are integral to the movie should be put in cutscenes. I think it should be just fun stuff. Like there's a mid-credit scene which is kind of just some silly stuff with Steve.
Yeah, silly stuff with Steve. Yeah, and Bumblebee. But I'm saying I think that's fine. Of what the scene played out, it's the one with Optimus. I said it to you yesterday, like if him running towards the camera, that was the scene that felt so weird to me of how to end it. Of like,
I don't remember that scene, to be honest. I think
they all go to the surface.
I might have just switched off.
They're all running towards the camera, and he's doing like the typical Prime speech at the end of the film. And it's just I don't know. I mean, it's just a weird shot. Like I just don't.
It's a reference to the live action movies, isn't it? Him doing a speech at the end of the movie.
Yeah, but he's normally standing around looking majestically into the distance or something.
I know, but I mean, for me, when you say the normal Prime speech at the end of the movie, I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm thinking, oh, it must be a
there's like
action thing.
Oh, I would almost have to show it to you again. Like it's like you know how Christopher Reeves at the end of a Superman film would fly to the camera and wink and kind of like it's very much that. Like he's just running and like it's just a weird shot.
My optics!
Hey, it's me, Orion Ghia, aka Sleeves. Just dropping in to say this podcast is running a little bit long, and due to all kinds of silly technical constraints, we're going to have to split it in two. So come back for the second half of this podcast in a day or two when I put that out. Yeah? Great. All right. See you soon. Bye!